finally the self-destruction of Diamond Comics is complete. They are filing for bankruptcy. This is something that we could have seen coming a mile away, despite Steve Geppi going out there on like Brian Hibbs' YouTube channel. We're like, nothing wrong here. We're doing great. We got a COVID loan. So we are not insolvent. We've got great financing and we have no issues whatsoever. Obviously, within the last month, they shut down one of their warehouses. I believe the Plattsburgh branch ended up getting shut down. Everything consolidated down to the Olive branch. And everything that was already a clusterfuck about Diamond Comics has become about 50,000 times worse. Diamond Comics Publishers, the comic distribution company that for decades held a firm grip on the shipping of comic books from the industry's biggest publishers across the Western world, has announced to retailers that it has filed for bankruptcy and is preparing to sell off several parts of its distribution arms around the world in an attempt to secure financial stability. But once DC left, then Marvel's like, hey, let's go find our own distribution deal. It was basically lights over for Diamond Comics. Sure, they were going to be able to survive for a while because they still had some exclusive deals with Image, but of course, even Image is left at this time. And you do have to feel very, very bad, not only for the retail partners working with Diamond, who are not going to be shipping them replacement comic books for all their damaged comics that are coming in, this past week and all this stuff. They need the protection, right? But you certainly feel bad for the smaller publishers out there, like maybe an Udon Press and stuff like that. Matt Moylan, I'm hoping to get him on the channel before the end of the week to kind of talk about this, what it's been like dealing with Diamond and what's their next move. But, a lot of people are absolutely going to be screwed over by this. And the worst part is this didn't really have to happen. Steve Geppi didn't have to get Diamond into such a place to where it could no longer continue as is. He could have updated the software. He could have done some firmware changes. He could have hired better people, put in better mechanisms, had better shipping material, had better relationships with Marvel and DC. He could have not tried to shut down the entire industry single-handedly. And this wouldn't be happening today because Diamond had a monopoly that, while certainly retailers cared about it and I cared about it and comic book readers cared about it, nobody else did. The government did not give a fuck. They said it was a legal monopoly because the market was so small that it was fine and nobody was going to mess with them. And the only person that could stop Diamond Comics was Steve Geppi, and he managed to pull it off. Now, as far as this bankruptcy, several other things are going to come along with it. Diamond confirmed that it intends to sell off its UK distribution arm, Diamond UK, as well as its tabletop game distribution subdivision, Alliance Games, to Universal Distribution, while also citing potential sales interest in multiple other branches of the company, including the grading service Collectible Grading Authority, as well as Diamond's merchandise arm, Diamond Select Toys. They are basically going to be breaking up the company. It sounds like they've already got deals in place for Diamond UK as well as Alliance Games going to Universal Distribution. That makes a lot of sense. We did see Diamond UK come out and say, hey, we're actually profitable. Nothing wrong here. Business will continue going on as usual. We're not having the problems that they are in the United States. Tabletop gaming still exceptionally popular. I'm a little bit of a tabletop gamer myself. Not surprised that there's a lot of interest in that. But the other things that they do, they're a challenge to CGC in the world of comic book grading. CGA never really worked out. They'll be selling that off probably to CGC itself or some other type of competitor there. And then the Diamond Select Toys. Me personally, and I don't want to talk like I'm a retailer because I'm not a retailer, but from the stories that I'm told is if you were a retailer, do not order toys with your comic books from Diamond because they will just put the fucking toys on top of the comic book. They will put, a 15-pound Batman statue on top of a foil fucking variant cover that's like 1 in 100 just because they're fucking idiots. But I imagine there will be some interest because Diamond Select Toys, while certainly they are toy distribution, they actually have some of their own licenses and stuff like that that are exclusive to them. Those are probably going to be tempting and valuable to some companies out there that like to do stuff like that. I don't want to speculate too much because while I'm very familiar with toys at this point, because Aaron and I do talk about toys every week on the Geek Picks, I'm not like a toy expert, but I imagine there's some smaller toy outlets out there that would like to get their hands on some of those, licenses, the exclusive stuff that Diamond Select Toys has been able to do over the years. So they certainly have valuable things out there that were a part of Diamond. And at one point, it was a really good idea. If you want to have like a geek bodega and, We were going to say we're going to have a comic book shop, we're going to have tabletop gaming, we're going to have toys and statues, but we're also going to have, these other trinkets and stuff like that. You could, in theory, just order it all from Diamond, and depending on your shipping, and if you ordered enough through there, you got big time discounts and stuff like that, and it made a whole lot of sense. But once Marvel walked away, once DC walked away, it really stopped making sense. And I didn't really understand why any retailer was using Diamond for distribution on Marvel anymore. Why wouldn't you just go to Penguin Random House? You just don't hear the horror stories with Penguin Random House that you do for Diamond. And Diamond's been in business for like 40 years, maybe even longer than that. And then Penguin Random House and Lunar were able to surpass them as far as, customer service and quality of distribution, and the product that you receive in the end. And they just made themselves completely useless. They were no longer fundamentally important to the comic book industry. And that's really how they ended up destroying themselves. The news comes from a letter sent to comic retailers today by Diamond's president, Chuck Parker, citing the unexpected loss of certain exclusive publisher relationships, compounded by an overall contraction in consumer spending, increased inflation, and a loss of margin on key print product lines as cause for the distributor to restructure its operations and secure the most favorable outcome for all stakeholders. Diamond recently confirmed it has shut down its Plattsburgh, New York distribution center late last year after months of delayed and damaged shipments to comic book stores across the U.S. in an attempt to retweak its tumultuous production issues. People have been talking about Diamond Comics and how their monopoly is horrible, not because it was a monopoly, it's because Diamond never got better. In fact, they just got worse over time, and they would literally deliver like 30% of all your product just damaged. You couldn't sell it because a big thing about comic books, and it's certainly something that Marvel and DC have leaned in on heavily over the past several years, and certainly other publishers as well, comic books are treated more like collectibles than entertainment nowadays. And guess what you don't want on your collectible? You don't want a corner ding. You don't want the little fucking spine tears. You don't want the pages bent. You don't want warping within the pages. You don't want water damage. And all of that shit was a very regular occurrence if you were doing business with Diamond Comics. And I know a lot of retailers were just so happy to not have to deal with them anymore, except for a little tiny bit with some of the really smaller publishers nowadays, because, Image is gone to Lunar. DC obviously started up Lunar. Marvel went over to Penguin Random House. I think IDW is left as well. And they really just lost any type of cachet they had within the industry itself. And they were just a sinking ship. And to be completely honest, the word on the street was they were about to go bankrupt at the end of last year. But I guess they got some type of loan that got them through the holiday season or whatever, because it was a poorly run business that had made itself integral to a niche market and then basically shot itself in the foot or the dick, however you want to talk about that. How did that happen? The unexpected loss came several years ago in the wake of Diamond's controversial handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The distributor shut down shipping of new comics to stores early on during the initial lockdown phases in 2020, essentially bringing an end to the sale of physical comics due to an array of exclusive distribution deals with the majority of publishers in the industry. But that shutdown ultimately led to multiple publishers breaking off from Diamond to seek alternative paths to distribution. DC Comics became the first major publisher to cut ties in June of 2020, while Marvel would follow by 2021. By 2024, Image, IDW, and other publishers had followed suit in ending exclusive distribution through Diamond. And I love the unexpected loss. For some reason, Steve Geppi and this Parker fellow thought that they could just unilaterally shut down an entire industry, which likely broke their contracts with DC and Marvel. And they're like, how could this happen? Why would they still want to be selling products when, the left coast and parts of the right coast just shut down, but everything in the middle was basically still open? Not everything, but a lot of it was still open. People still wanted to buy comic books, and retailers still wanted to sell comic books. Can you imagine what would have happened to a lot of these retailers if Diamond had gotten their way? We just would have sat there for 6 months with no product to sell. Even more comic book shops would have went under in the end. And there were a lot of retailers doing a lot of very interesting and inventive and creative things to do to make sure that they were able to get their comic books to their customers. Because, you couldn't come in to the store, but hell, fuck it. Order you a pizza, I'll bring you the comic books with the pizza. We got curbside service. They were doing everything they had within the confines of the laws and the restrictions that were going on within their local municipality or their state or whatever, because every place was different. Not only every state, but every town and county was different. The way they were handling it, a lot of the ways across the United States. And these retailers are the reason that the American comic book industry is still surviving. And when I say American comic books, I'm talking about LCSs and obviously superhero comic books, because they got product in the hands of people even when it was very, very difficult. And they put their blood, sweat, and tears on the line and made it happen. And Diamond wanted to shut it all down. Not unexpected. The minute they did that, you could see someone was going to be like, fuck that. That ain't happening. We actually have to keep our business going, during these hard times. And it was an absolute bumblefuck on the part of Steve Geppi and Diamond Comics to ever think that they could get away with that, which obviously they couldn't. And now they are a nothing burger in the comic book industry, which is already very, very small potatoes in comparison to a lot of other industries out there. Diamond can't even wholesale DC Comics. They want nothing to do with them. At least Marvel still allowing them to wholesale and everything. But the writing has been on the wall for quite some time. And I love this final statement. I thought this was a nice little extra fuck you to retailers. Parker concluded, Diamond has been a linchpin of the comic book industry for over 4 decades. Our priority has always been to provide quality services to publishers, retailers, and ultimately comic fans. And we remain committed to finding additional buyers for our businesses. Go on Twitter. I think it's at Wizards with an S, ICT. It's a comic book shop in Wichita, Kansas. The guy's got about a 3-minute video explaining all the damages that he received from Diamond this week. You should see the size of the box and how many comic books were actually trying to fit in there. No wonder every single thing was damaged the entire way through. And that has been what retailers have been dealing with for Diamond for like at least 20 years at this point. They never got better. They fucked over retailers. They fucked over comic book fans and publishers a lot along the way. Now, did Geppi and Diamond do some nice things? Absolutely. There are a lot of comic book shops that would have went under, that Steve Geppi did loan them money, but of course they all paid him back. And there were some good things that happened from Diamond and Steve Geppi. But a lot of it was very bad. And in the end, it almost sunk the entire industry. It took Jim Lee and DC Comics to bring them out of what was, at one point going to be a unilateral shutdown of the entire fucking industry because one man decided they just weren't going to work anymore. And eventually, if you're not a good business, if you have bad product, if you don't have good customer service, you will be phased out and you'll become extinct. And that's what we're seeing happen to Diamond. And I've been covering it every single step of the way here on the channel. And I am on the right side of history. Brian Hibbs, you were a fucking idiot saying that, we should all just stick with Diamond. Our comeback's going to be greater than our setback. What a load of hooey that bullshit was. If you like what we're doing here, providing the news about comic books and reviews and all that kind of stuff, and you would like to support Think Critical YouTube, the best place to do that is Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. Lots of exciting stuff going on there. All of your favorite guests, Doc, Jim, Aaron Sparrow, 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser, yours truly, more than you could possibly handle live right now. Come see me.